Good evening. On my first day at Harvard, I was asked to speak one line of poetry that would stand for my belief in the genre. It was a strange request, and my non sequitur was probably a great disappointment to the student reporter. But I felt that the only worthy response would be the following 6 words by George Oppen. "Therefore," said Mary, "they are welcome." It's a humble yet magnanimous line, this idea of welcome, the urgent work of welcome, the daily task of keeping ajar what is apt to close, to keep awake what is apt to sleep, to keep ahead and there and for what is apt to slip backwards. And man, is this country fond of slipping backwards. This is one of the primary motions of poetry. Its courageous and continuous gesture of welcome. This is a long way of saying, it's a poetic way of saying, that it is a profound pleasure to welcome Joe Donahue and Ed Roberson to Harvard, and to be able to honor their presence through the insights of our introducer this evening, Keith Jones. Keith Jones is the author of several collections of poetry, most recently Fugue Meadow, and is an esteemed scholar and critic whose insights into the works of our poets this evening possess the same spacious concentrations for which the poet Fred Moten has praised Keith's own work. Please join me in welcoming Keith Jones.
Good evening, and welcome. It is a profound honor to introduce Joe Donahue and Ed Roberson tonight, 2 poets who have enormously enabled my own writing and thinking, influencing me in ways I am still trying happily to discover. They are poets for me, and I trust for many here this evening, whose work is of such an astonishing, acute clarity and force that reading them is to learn how to inhabit the world, our world, more wholly. It is to learn, as Donaghue's most recent collection suggests, how to have our ear turned to the earth, hearing the roots, the rocks, the layers of sediment, the residue of oceans and heat torn off from a star. The way these poets each mark and move between earth and world, fingering, attaching little arrows to those places, those wounds where earth and world touch, the injuries that their coherence often means, while honoring the beauty there too. This is their extraordinary dispensation. They are, of course, different poets, each utterly uncommon in his way, and yet, in part, what makes them each so singular is precisely the relations they share. No 2 poets remind me more, for instance, of George Oppen, especially, I'm not alone in this, if we consider the following lines from Of Being Numerous. So small a picture, a spot of light on the curb, it cannot demean us. I too am in love down there with the streets and the square slabs of pavement. To talk of the house and the neighborhood and the docks, and it is not art. Oppen places art in quotes in order for us to understand that his love is not artifice, that it is real, not subordinate to or in the service of his poetry, but rather that his love for the streets, for everyday things and everyday people, in Sly Stone's great phrase, is the source of the poetry itself, is what poetry is. No earthbound thing too small, too crude, too incidental, not to exalt, not to refuse to be demeaned by. If Oppen's is a love of earthly things that restores to the earthly the glow of that which halos what we care for and, in caring for, transfigure both it and ourselves, then we are in that same presence of poetry's source this evening. For it is a kind of everyday divine verse that these poets make. Theirs is a glinting, at times blinding, subtle, fluctuating world of poesis, We are ever in the presence of transfiguration in Donaghue's and Roberson's poems, alive to and witnessing what Donahue calls all those tatters of the creation. To each poet, the simplest thing becomes like luminous debris in Gustav Sobin's magisterial sense, a relic, a ruin, a Poundian or Olsonian hieroglyph. Take, for instance, a chicken's bone that becomes for Roberson, in a poem dedicated to Hafiz, an instrument of revelation. Bone, wind chimes, months older, ting, ting in the quiet window bay, only bones holler from, and bring the world inside of who is coming and who is gone. A bone's been once inside gives out onto a landscape of beyond. There the flesh can be touched in a sound, his name, a craft of memory, a song. What is happening out there in the poem isn't outside us. As the poem intimates, that landscape of beyond was always the itinerary of the bone, but so too were its musics, the way its former flesh can be touched in a sound. It is sheer magic travel we do as we move across these lines, traversing interiorities and exteriorities, jumping species, shuttling between temporalities, while inhabiting quite concretely scales that shift in a hair's breadth between the infinitesimal and the cosmic. This is a vision which cultivates the bringing into view such entanglements, the spaces between, the absences of space, where and how they brush against one another, overlap, silences made to speak, vast bodies and phenomena enormously scaled, made intimate with our own. The speaker in Donaghue's poem entitled Transit will write, "I can feel the shadow of the planet Mercury drift across the failing fire." This is a Blakean vision, a poetics founded deeply on an invitation to see spatially, to see chromatically, as Roberson suggests, and to inhabit the knot of time, to crisscross it catechistically, as Donahue suggests, noting, as he puts it, that we are still in the time of revelation. Indeed, we should take heart that, as the speaker of Donaghue's most recent Dark Church declares, in these poems, the curse of incarnation is lifted. The longer we read and the more we dwell in the places these poets have built, the clearer it is to perceive that these are structures not of walls, but windows. The lines they write are like portals through which earthlight, the light of stars, intercede, interrupt, illumine that brief thing we are as body, as mind, as inhabitant of earth. The figures of these poems, the speakers, are always at or in liminal spaces, staring out of windows, looking up or looking down, moving in and out of doors. No borders pertain in their work. What registers instead are those thresholds, rigorously thought, of life, of death, of instances in their phenomenological density, of every memory we are and erasure that we make. For what Donaghue's and Roberson's poems remind us of in their inimitable, vatic ways is how what we write with the one hand, we erase with the other. Fragments, ruins, blurs, dissolves is all we have or are. In the final crescendoing pages of Dark Church, the poet tells us what these poems are and for whom they have been written, an antidote, in fact, to whatever might feel like sadness or despair. A cosmos consecrated to beauty, a heaven of annihilation, opening for whoever studies the depth of the dome, whoever looks up, hopeless and bereft. In these poems, pain arrives in radiance. It is also ministered to with benediction. Indeed, Roberson will suggest the stars themselves as a kind of poultice, which, he writes, is like a crust that when lifted off dissolves what is the pain of, for us, us. It is a complex metaphor, the stars above us like a scab that must be pulled from our ontological selves. The star chart we think we've made, more our own self-injury, a drawing too near of our horizons than what we might have been, or still might be as earthlings. In part, what I've intended to draw out tonight is Donaghue's and Roberson's deep convergences in a comportment to what I would call planetarity, that is, an interest in and attunement to the life of planets, by which I mean the isness, the ontologies of planets, of the lives, the life forms, the imaginal horizons and possibilities of thought, of consciousness, which planets by their very nature constitute and are indistinguishable from. The planet is the whole tree, as Emerson might say, and not just sticks of timber. The poet's work is to ornament us with the eyes inwardly to see such outward relations. Or, as Roberson says of the moon, it exists in the same space as us. A sentiment, a transplanetary sense, which is for me a crystallization of what I mean by planetarity, a feel for space and time, for the various dispersed, porous ontologies that we are. If you do not see on these gentlemen a wand or cape, a spacesuit, or what Donahue at one point calls ambrosial robes, don't be fooled. Bear in mind that one thing they teach us is not that there are things invisible, but that we must cultivate the habit of seeing what Wallace Stevens called the nothing that is not there and the nothing that is. Such is the poet's task. Such is the gift of the poets this evening. Please help me warmly welcome Ed Roberson and Joe Donahue.
Thank you very much for being here and coming to hear us do our magic show. I'm going to jump into this really quickly and explain what I'm going to try to do this evening. After my first book came out, I was in the English department, and a friend of mine, Andrew Welsh, who wrote the Roots of Lyric, Princeton University book you probably might have come across. Andy had just finished the dissertation, and I had just finished the first book, and well, what he said was, "We're going to take the bikes to California. You want to go?" Now, you have to understand that I had never been on a motorcycle in my life. And it took me absolutely a nanosecond to say yes. I wanted to go. And it took me probably even less than that to go buy a good pair of fry boots, a pair of jeans, jacket, T-shirt, and just stand on a corner and throw out my thumb. It was Andy Welsh, who was, like I say, was in the English department, and the other guy on the other bike was Dick Vandal, who was a painter, a really good painter, who spent his life teaching in high schools. So we took this trip cross country on motorcycle, and I've written about it in a couple of places, but I lost the original manuscript. I don't know when I lost it. I just at one point found myself not having it there in the pile on the desk. Well, I found it. I was tearing up my house, getting ready to retire, and I found the manuscript. The manuscript is 35 years old, and it took me a while. It actually took me a month to look at it. I just refused to look at it. I was so surprised I had found it, and I could read. I knew what it was. I could read the first couple of pages, and just trying to figure out what's it like to see yourself, 35 years ago. Where did I start out? The amazing thing that happened was that I had been able to keep hold of one or two poems that I had notes for, and I was able to finish writing them, and I'd had them published. And one of them was really my favorite poem. It's based on the spiritual "Didn't It Rain?" I always missed, I knew that there were 3 poems that preceded that. And lo and behold, they're the opening 3 poems to the old manuscript. So what I'd like to do is read you that kid 35 years ago and see how he measures up to the old man who has gone through a couple of really serious operations and now have a bionic brain, as they call it. I had normal pressure hydrocephalus and had to have the shunt put in to drain. You know, you don't want to know the details. But I was very lucky to find a surgeon who was willing to take that kind of operation on. I found out, he never told me, I found out 2 years after the operation that he was number 6 in the country, and the department at Northwestern was number 11 in the country in terms of neurosurgery. This is a guy who was a Groucho Marx of the department. He was a delightful person. He also, when he set me down to tell me, he didn't tell me that 31% of these operations are successful. 7% of them are fatal. And he brought me through this thing like you wouldn't believe. So what I want to do is read you the old guy who came after. Well, it's the middle guy. so I'm just trying to get you set up here. Okay, let's do the motorcycle poems. I called them MPH. 2 motorcycles, 2 white guys, 1 black guy, take off from Pittsburgh, decide that we're going to go visit all of our friends in the country, from Michigan to Conifer, Colorado to Santa Barbara. We're going to just go camp on everybody's living room floor and see the country. I had been studying myth and anthropology, Native American and African, and so this has the sequence of a quest. It didn't start out that way, but it turned into a sequence of a quest. As if I seen enough, I put what I seen between my eyes and think the trigger was my being born. As if I'd been enough, I put where I will have been clear cross country and try to make it. So the trigger, what I'm up against, is going to get pulled on it this trip. I see people look at each other and see the historical figure, the driving, guiding, manifest figure cross country. Wanting to get there, they drove each other and one to a position where he shot the next motherfucker to drive him to anything, and it was himself. This whole trip from Jump Street was up against, and people came armed, with beginnings loaded for starts, and the killer it wasn't any fairy tale white enchanted horse that they got on for beauty and couldn't get off. It was white. It was the sails of the prairie, clouds and schooners and space with no overboard that menopausal Europe and its ferry, other than the slavers wrote, a vessel washed up free. Beside 2 rivers just made one, beside the river here the Mississippi, just new now from the Allegheny and Monongahela, just become the Ohio before we hit the Ohio line, before we're out of town, before the just then Ohio is the Mississippi. We pull up beside a city truck with a dump truck full of young bloods, like in Mississippi. At the West End Bridge leaving Pittsburgh, headed for Ohio, state line which we will never actually see, the first of those drawn lines which we will never see. We see that this is Mississippi here, beside the two rivers just made one. Not even out of town, another load of brothers sees 2 cycles and a brother loaded on the back, headed cross country. 5 hand waves, some where you headed jibes, 9 black power hands, 1 peace sign, and 1 you'll never make it. And 1 pair of still leaving with me eyes, these, I promise, I swear, to these eyes, as a slave flew, we will make it. 'Cause when we made the Middle Passage, didn't we walk the waters, didn't we? Have the waters paved with the skulls of our grief for each other, didn't we make it on ourselves? When we crawled under the Mason-Dixon, didn't we jump the fence over Jordan? Didn't the river rebed behind us and turn blood because the bloods wouldn't tell? Didn't we make it to this one side on our other? On ourselves, didn't we get put up when we went back down home? Didn't we hide in each other? No hotels, that we stood uppity a chance of getting shot. Didn't we walk on the shadow years later of Emmett Till, children who did? Didn't it make your step higher than just to walk? Didn't the westward push opening, the country turn Middle Passage, trying to shut us out, panicked at the plow flattened hardness of our feet, having stood on each other? Didn't we open the rock like our hearts? Didn't it bleed too, to yield too, to eat? Didn't it rain? Didn't it rain? Thank you. By the edge of town, north is the same as south. By the state line, the only line is broken out ahead by the toll. Directions make a contract on his throat. Turn to look too many, and the chicken of his head is twisted off. Everywhere there is to come from is come here too. See it stand on his neck like a top. By Cleveland, the crossfire of getting north, the Underground Railroad, he can hear it under the road. And by Detroit, the Teutonic mask of the mother of fast death and Mack cab over engine eats double cuts off the top of all the hills, hunting for us. By Albion, the wind thinks itself apart to pieces. Its suburb part axes down its voices, the trees. Indians that our roots drank to get big timber bleed back bricks through windshields. The topsoil, like cornices off these buildings, rain on us. The land looks like the bottom of a dry lake. The clouds take any shape they please. An anvil is over the red dome, the gold dome of Wisconsin. By Minnesota, the Mayans have slipped Frank Lloyd Wright the self-destruct motif in a warehouse for revenge. The Landmark Society is civil defense here. Between 2 towns, blue earth and black earth, the jolly green giant is grown. The white blonde of their hair there turns green in the light of the shade loading trucks. Vegetables. By the Mississippi, he merely have to pee. The family river, come out of this everywhere there is to come from. Come here, look here. They knew their direction back was up, rising like they knew the combination to a safe in a number, and they threw their bones and they flew. They hope a mathematic. In every direction, black spots on the cracked dice fly in the buttermilk, cotton all over the sky, like rice, like white on rice, their eyes on the clouds they follow. The weather, They get away in a black limousine storm. They fly the sounds up high as they go. All the head up, top down, loud outriding kind of riding we do, even in walk, is the echo of that break. It is the figure, the music, and like here, I go, they cross country, all up out of my head, no one to go, they bail, hand on the plow, I hear music everywhere, hold on. There's a section I found in there where it says the Black Limousine Storm. These are all real places. There is a place called Blue Earth and Black Earth, and it's up in the country where they actually do grow things on industrial farms for the Jolly Green Giant. And it's up north in the Midwest, so it's in that area of the country settled by Northern Europeans. So all the kids up there, these beautiful blonde kids, and in the right sunlight, their hair turns green. So, well, I grew up in a mixed neighborhood, and I've seen white people, but I never saw them like that. One of the things that happened was, since I was the one sitting on the back, I was the navigator. So one of the things I would do is I would sit on the back of the bike and spread the map out on Andy's back and sort of yell at him, sort of look, oh, here's the Badlands, turn left, kind of thing. But we also got to see a lot of things that were not pleasant. One of the images that goes through these poems, and I was surprised to see this image because I have used it over and over again over the years, is the image of the road signs that are shot up by people just riding along and taking down a rifle and pinging off things, and ping off at road signs as well as at people. And we had a couple of brushes with one especially scary brush with a motorcycle gang outside of Sioux Falls. So here, spreading the rider spreads out the map on the driver's back, like on a table out of the wind while moving. Some seeing through what is spread out on the head for both is foreseen like collision and corrected for. The idea stillness of the map, movings, necessary changes of mind when the sign passes. Or St. Christopher carrying the weight of his freight's eyes, a giant and a child in that story, a black and a white at this crossing who both could be either and both, but also are the national figure for trouble, not on the dashboard, the rifle behind in the gun rack, the road signs barely readable for bullet holes, the race-drawn fire's permanent letting in of light appears through the map on a driver's back out of habit, almost holy, almost catechism. Not a sign given is left readable, no idea where we are. This machine needs help. I wonder, do the head goose hear the motor? Swim in the sky water, wonder do he hear his brothers awake, jam the wind all out of shape. About nothing to lose, and how the house of directions be all out of shape because they were born, leaning on the corner, getting their back beat, beating their own head on out, head on out, head on out. Straight out is flat, and the yellow wind crosses your crossing of it head on, like the clear adobe wall of that house of four directions, four-cornered house that is the crossing in which moving is leaning against the corner post, your head against the road, your head into the dunce corner of your wake, and the rough today of someday when outside is past, when the post stood still. House afire, and ain't no water around, house catch fire, Lordy, ain't no water around. Throw yourself out the window and let it all burn down. The cloud dark, the pillar dark behind, the cycle trailing smoke, something wrong and right too far gone. Both lean on the lead. By falling back full throttle, the walls shake. Out of control or want of it comes enough to stop. This looks like where we eat. We are nowhere. That little section in there, House of Fire and No Water Around, was something that people took as nihilism or a willing for anarchy to burn down this house, burn down this house, the big house. And it's a blues song, and it's throw yourself out the window and let it all burn down, was taken as particularly threatening to some people at some point. Wall-to-wall horizon, no one in the next compartment that you know. The phone connected only as far as your voice. The sun lying around close to quitting time, and this machine needs help. We eat. The rib cage overweighted when it lifted from the sea. Design returned from the punch of the air. Speed. The hands meant for this picking over meat. Settle from the throttle, the throat of the throttle. The skull and its tomato of putting together slices and cheese decides to put tomato between the earth and sky and try to make it. We eat thin-skinned, fragile things. We eat things stronger. The road, the distance, the engine heart of the wind. We pick over the meat of our chances, take the biggest and make a sandwich of ourselves as we would be. We shove from what we can no longer touch, pushing what we cannot reach. The walls shake. We ran into trouble. One of the bikes developed some mechanical trouble in the desert, and we were sort of stuck between whether to go back or whether to keep moving forward with the bike. We were losing control. But one of the most moving things that happened is when we left the city, when we left Pittsburgh, the image was up the walls of the skyscrapers leaving the city. There's that little disc of blue that you have above you, and then the further you get away from the city, that disc seems like it opens up and then falls around you until it becomes a horizon. And my way of making a song or a chant, which I had been studying a song about that, is this. On it, at any time, the inside of the O in open sits out on it. The print is below the horizon. The page is blank. The line to the point continues through looking around. All subjects have been dropped. On it, one time, the tidal wind blew open. The spoke finger of men's wheels under every letter of the land sounding out, road, road. And that, like the river's water rote, drowns out in the sea. This imprimatur has been hung in me up on where things are these days since the Pacific turned the ride around. That's the kid. I'll take a couple of minutes and read a few of the old guy's works. They found the what they call him, the Iceman. They found him having ridden in the ice for so many hundreds of years, and the idea that somebody could actually just travel a distance like that and then suddenly reappear appear as an ancestor among, what came after, which is us. So you wondered, if he were awake, who would he expect to meet him, say hello? He had been riding a glacier. He got off where the sun lets ice off into air. He and the past are arriving back. The atmosphere takes its long, cooped-up gases in again from what they've been, not as prodigal, but as a different state. Who has come to meet him? He'd wonder if he could, and what he looked like a past coming to them. Not all stops or transfers. Was he home? How much is just a ride, a means of arrival? The moving hot springs that brings island after island to Hawaii. The lift of peaks down along Cook Inlet. The lava of ironworking carrying the L, the A train. The crowd of transit authorities and systems to drop you off on the moon. The full moon of State Street or Maine. The know-how we ride without even knowing. One of the interesting things is that beneath the mantle of the earth there are these hot spots that sort of travel along, and a volcano here and go along, and another volcano and another volcano. And what we inherit from that sort of traveling hot spot is the Hawaiian Islands, that kind of thing. Submerged leaves in the invisible flow over the settlements of the stream bed, as smooth a countercross of movement as aircraft seen passing below the altitude we're at, forward but sideways and seen faster than they are, as in a maelstrom of motions. They're almost pinned to spin on an axis of our passing. Crossing over the intersecting craft below, throws it around behind you before it goes under and disappears. When we placed the gods overhead, it didn't occur this is where they'd see from, that point where from above moving directions appear nonsense. Just as here, that isn't newspaper either rolling across the park lawn. It's a garbage of gulls, well above ground level, but below the view from these upper floors. Blown gray wings, the day editions, pages I didn't go down to pick up at the stand, and now they fly by, out of my hands, beyond my grasp as those scheduled crossings of planes, as of the gods' crossings of planes of war, or of lovers' stars. Out in the clouds, this is a sense some of you have probably had. There are certain senses that are sort of difficult to explain. There is part of the body that reacts before it knows it's reacting. Like, for instance, if you're sitting on a rock and you have a 5-year-old sitting beside you and all of a sudden you hear a plop, you don't think. I have a friend who had exactly that experience. He's a great swimmer, but he said he was in the air before he knew anything had happened. Sense. Out in the clouds, the panicked herd of heat lightning gallops back and forth, corralled into a sky fenced by the earth into everywhere overhead. The animal at the grounded mercy of what it can't hear, but it's coming underneath the audible. The smell before storms that raises those hairs, the ears, that lifts your head out of the crowd before the nose even catches on. A wind of which you can't see of what, if anything, there, except answer, a full leap ahead of any question, an alertness that runs you last to die. Thank you.
That's what the art does right there, when it's really, really good. I've been reading Ed's work for many years, and it's like total inspiration 24/7. The man never lets up. But wow. Okay. I'm going to read the opening suite of a poem book called Dark Church. Dark Church is the third volume of an ongoing long poem called Terra Lucida. This first suite is called Earth Shadow, and it begins with an epigram from a Turkish poet, Seyhan Erozalik, which is, "You are experiencing a minor distress." I'm going to be, this is a suite of poems. A few of them have kind of individual titles or prompts, but I'm just going to kind of read through the whole suite, so I'll just pause a bit between sections. Flat out in the dark, I heard above me some other guest say, "Well, he had a good run of it." But seated at my table was a doctor. He crouched down and brought me back to life. Later, test after test found no real reason why I died that night. I took a sip of water, I swallowed it as I stood up, and my heart stopped. Iceland. Would this enshrouding were the emancipation of matter? Would this flame were of the spirit, this volcano ethereal, guttering forth from a paradise of white ice? Would the sky mirrored the earth, and in fact it does, alive now with swirl of dirt, dark smoke crossing the ocean in sulfurous continents, ash falling. Would all places were part of an unfolding cosmos of charcoal flakes? Would the upward rush were angelic? Would souls were assembled on a mountain in Iceland, begging to utterly fly up, to and through the gate of a higher and final fire? Would there were a new body for each? Would that were what you too wanted, though you'd be crushed, be devastated, when all that comes again, but there is still the joy of that flight, that ascent, that forgetting, that forgiveness which you crave, have in your way circled the earth in search of, that miracle, that liberation, that escape, up through the opening blown in the sky, where the purified go, where you are not just ash, filthy and guilty and adrift. San Juan Islands. The mountain beyond is a pure luminous sea of cloud. Above a coiling blue plateau, a part of the far coast is erased, or is just a faint pencil line under a chalky streak. Whatever islands these are, in whatever ocean this is, this expanse of glowing blue, one part smoother than any other, they reflect the sky that reflects the water. To the north, a diffusion of white, clouds on the water like snow on the mountain, and the blue abiding in the mountain stone, as if stone kept the color of the sea it once rose out of. Horizons of stone, cloud, trees, the shadow of islands on the water, seem like a part of the islands, or like snowfields of cloud between some islands. The clouds create a bay that rests above the islands. Some of the islands are clouds or are floating on a cloud, black on the white, a touch of the sun's gold on the low white waves of a veil. These may be the islands where the stones glow at night. These may be the islands where a lost girl with tangled hair and a shell in her hand can see the other side of the world. These may be the islands that drift away like a boat. These may be the islands about to sink below the water. These may be the islands where our fate is sealed, sky pink behind the trees, until mist draws in the land. Tomorrow they won't be here. They will never have existed. These may be the islands that are only an outcropping of rock in a blue magnitude. These may be the islands hidden by the other islands, while to the south, to the west, it's total ocean. These may be the islands of the madrona tree, the red wood across of blood in the bank of evergreen bristling above the rocks. These may be the islands of the wings of a dragonfly poised blue above a leaf, islands of hornets, wasps, and bees. There are nests in the ground. The bees rise up like a cloud. Excuse me. Their fire would cover your arms and face. These may be the islands with troves of honey in the trees, pits of honey in the meadows, behind which a lake of white light rests on the water in front of a dark gray island. The land has snapped. There is a notch, a gap, through which a dark island can be seen. That may be from where last night's dream came, terrifying and tragic. No one should ever have it. One's glad to wake up alive in a tent on a bluff over an inlet. The water is now brighter than the sky, black scratches in lavender. Are we heading toward a continent, an open sea, a platform of stone in the roiling, visible only at low tide, where a 19th century fantast stages pranks for voyagers? A beautiful ingenue is dressed up as a mermaid. A surgeon in a white coat pulls a string of sausages from the body of a patient. 4 men play cards at a table, a barber, a pole, a chair, a client, his hair long strands of kelp. These may be the islands appearing in a sea of pearl, of pale violet and silver. It may be these islands are crowns of a sunken continent, as if exiles were always banished in sight of an ancestral coast, that itself was in sight of an island where the Creator set down the first man. These may be the islands where above us is a star responsible for all radiance, and for black, charcoal, gray, violet, pearl, aqua, turquoise, teal, all the colors that are older than continents. These may be the islands from which tunnels run deep through the earth and end in the land of the Hopi. Tunnels thought to be 9,000 years old. These may be the islands where the chief said, the tribe arrived from a star. They climbed down ropes made of celestial roots. After the descent, and possibly to their dismay, the ropes became waterfalls. This next part is based on a painting by a wonderful painter named Randy Hayes. It's called The Temple of Aphrodite. A Krakatoa yet to occur, or a killer comet undetectable until the day a telescope loops Venus, as if the atmosphere of the earth were the roof of a ruin in flames. Temple, twilight, orange bathes the beams. There is no inside to the sacred anymore, only steps, arches, a final sunlight, and snapshots, many of our bluish-gray life. And trees, black, far off, empty roads, curving upward, low hills, forest, aglow sunk in love's ruin. This is life without you, goddess. Holy places obliterated, a doorway, darkness around it, steps running up to what no longer is in Turkey, Mexico, Japan, Mississippi. What remains is a broken climb to an exploded place, where even so demonstrably dissolute and aspirant as might yet be you, feels a flicker as a tabernacle turns to a gray, empty void in which these stairs catch light. No one else seems to be here. Have all been called to the top step? Have all been invited to vanish from this, the first place where Aeneas fell asleep after fleeing, dreaming that the orange on pillars and groves is not the sun, but the pyre of Dido, a last glow reaching? How could he even begin to fathom it? Baptist porticos in Mississippi, monk huts in Kyoto, all stairs, all around the whirl that just stop, mid-step, blown away. Any burnt height is a temple to Aphrodite. Quote, upper arms close to her body, hands extended, the horizontal zones of garment filled with a complex figural relief. Selene, Helios, Erotes, the graces are there. So too is Aphrodite, not in local guise, but half nude and on a sea goat, with dolphins leaping at her side, a divinity of earth, heaven, and sea. For a time, all icons of love came from this city. An earthquake toppled it. Even before the Greeks, the womb from which all emerged found itself joyously worshipped here. And long after newer gods stepped through these ruins, hot springs called the sick from their beds to bathe and heal, and so, coincidentally, by love's shrine, a wide necropolis. Later, mother of all, your name is struck from the stone, your body toppled, your vast matrix of image-making becomes Stavropolis, the city of the crosses. All pictures of earth, of sea, and sky show signs of Aphrodite. Any place can become for some momentarily her temple, at least the orange light of a fantastic sunset, or when remembering after many decades schoolyard loves, their voices floating over the nun's hedge from the other side of the convent, across the girls' playground. Right? There's some people here who know what this playground is. Across the girls' playground, as if blowing down from the sky or across an ocean, they seemed both close and farther than Eurasia. Then perils of a note passed through many hands before it gets to the one, folded and unfolded many times along the way. As if a note came, and if a note came back, you pored over every word, dazzled, ashamed, useless for whatever subject you were in the midst of. Perhaps now you should unfold that long-lost note at the top of a stair, where a door once obscured a violet sky aglow with pink, and say aloud, Goddess, today is my birthday. I stand instructed in the lessons no creature does not learn. I praise your powers, you who protect and punish all, perfecting us in our haphazard worship as these stones are perfected, quarried, hauled, carved, hoisted, now scattered around a field, to raise the temple that still stands, semi-transparent in whatever this light is that seems somewhat other than a copy of the sun. Further to Aphrodite, addenda to Aphrodite. Right? What is beautiful appears blissful in itself. So you who are called far shining, in your emergence above the horizon, your touch makes the world perceptible, though terror and fear are your children. You preside over the sensate particularity of creation, and so over every shape in the world. Without you, all would be just particles and force. The hours welcome you. They dress you in ambrosial robes. In Delphi, it's true, you were seen as a goddess of death. How startling to spot your face on a tomb. The art of adornment is the only art. A head is banded in black, to blot light from the eyes. The psychiatric term for this is complex grief. Even at noon, the time is always night, a night spent looking at photos of the sun. The air awakens to what is, to whispers in a prison. The senses then will not be needed. Each skull will feel the breeze for itself. Someone steps out, lives go by, a door is closing. drift mind, a million miles from this mouth. Above bare trees, the moon is a gulag. Above bare trees, the moon is a gulag, white. The moon may be as well. A gulag, white and radiant. At the gate. Dawn drops into the pine grove, into the prison of impossible ideals. Say God's your lover. Could even that so bring the soul to this edge of the senses, especially during a delightful summer rain? Deer float through the trees and into a mist. The village is astonished. From deep inside the house, the sound of her father's grieving reaches those gathering at the gate. There is only ever the now and the not now. A wave of blue rolls through. The gray overhead turns a beautiful whitish gray, as if the sky were now the inside of a cloud or a mountain range beneath the ocean. There is only ever the now and the not now. The shadows on the grass are beautiful beyond fruitfulness. No tree does not hold some torn limb. A dream. A new life as a small tangle of shadows, amid a heap of shadows, of spiders in an empty house, a spider among spiders, a dream where it is the living who enduring a death, come back in new form, come back in this instance in a moving tangle of shadows at the far end of, far from the door of, a dark and almost empty house, no place you ever remember living, yet that woman leaning in, for a moment in profile, though so much younger in the light at the door, must be your mother, checking the table for mail. Must be the joy of seeing her is so great, who else could it be? She's saying no one's home to whoever is there outside. The origin of fireworks. Where are the fireworks exploding this evil night, this black dragon feasting on my heart as once upon that of Emperor Li Shimin, who, less alone than I, and in an immense and glorious palace, commanded the royal alchemist Li Tian to drive the sky monster back through some novel hole in the dark, blown wide with copper, barium, magnesium, and sodium eruptions, and for sparkle, titanium, with powders packed tight, lit, arcing toward heaven in a bamboo tube. In this long night of no horizons, will any counselor come close and whisper to me, I have rockets to drive away the beast in the night sky, the terror biting down into your heart. A tabernacle is so painted as to appear in flames, so that a door in the flame would open, a scroll be lifted out, as if the scroll came from the flame or was written by the flame, only to be, once unrolled and read, set back into the flame, the rage of the flames continually scripting anew, the multitude of letters flowing so beautifully across the scroll, the Torah of flame in the moment of its telling, with one recurrent truth amid all the laws, dreams, genealogies, and legends. History is ashes. Prophecy is ashes. There is only ever the now and the not now. Flame tree. But when Iris recited her lines about the flame trees in Africa, your mind was full of flame trees, of wonder and curiosity about flame trees, so that when later, in a hallway, you saw her dressed for a dance, you were so envious of her escort, you almost confessed what might now, decades later, have kept her from your dream, as if you knew right then that years in the future she would appear to you so beautiful, in a formal black dress, so elegant, as might be seen at a concert, at an opening, though on her cheek a small cut, a gash, a red cusp under the bone. I would love to catch up, she says, but first immense distances must be crossed, and rather quickly, oceans and mountains. There will be more time to talk as soon as we get to a continent beyond even that Africa where, as you might remember, I once lived as the daughter of a botanist at the University of the Dreaming Mind, there doing research. The two of you set out, you, even in your astonishment that she has found you, that her beauty, her wound, and her words so compel your assent, secretly hoping you might, in your passages, finally see a flame tree. That the hurry, the urgency so evident in her tone, might nonetheless require along the way a moment of rest, perhaps in the shadow of a flame tree, if in their cool burning they have shadows. A death bears down. Her fear passes into you, through you, a fear so much more profound than your own petty fretting, that in the panic of this exodus, you may slip past a flame tree, its flowers of cold flickering as astonishing as Africa, and not notice. And Iris is too distracted by the encroaching calamity too absorbed in finding the way to the waiting world to point one out. To be fair, those years ago, she never said much about her past, about Africa, about her life there, though her poetry did, so vivid, so secretive, so utterly exact. Now the dream decrees you both will be flying beneath the earth and through the earth to evade violent spirits. As in most dreams, much will never be revealed, but this is sure. All aspects of this adventure came to be through Iris, the world, the rescue from it, the place that needs to be reached. It is all called forth by her presence. And you, who have long believed in pretty much nothing, now espouse whatever lets you sink with her, deeper and deeper into and through, emerging on what side of where, in what may turn out to be some blissful and immaterial body. Now accept whatever truth lets you follow her, fly beside her, whatever the fate of this escape, to be with her forever, with Iris, if only she would turn her face to you, though even long ago her glance was always so fleeting. There's 2 sections left in this suite. This is called Blossoms, and this is would probably, anyone who has really bad eyesight, the nearsighted among us, you will understand this almost immediately. This is about looking out the window and, like in March sometime and thinking, oh, I see, finally the trees are starting to blow, the flowers are coming out, and then you realize, no, you've been misled by your hope for spring, and it's in fact dead leaves that are white and shiny. And then you put your glass, and you go like, I don't know, do I want to live with my glasses on or off? I've never really figured that out. It's a philosophical conundrum. Blossoms. As if those nearly dead leaves, were once or might yet be in some unworldly oncoming season, actual blossoms. This pre-dawn delusion was enhanced, you might insist, by the noticeably increased birdsong, so that along with the thought that blossoms blessed a faraway branch, came the thought of what thought the blossoms themselves might be thought to be, if not yet now, soon or forever be. And the thought that within the thought of what the blossoms might be thought to be might be the heart of thought that brought them to be, like the petals within the furl of the first buds on a faraway branch, in a heart where spring is no longer unimaginable. Brought all these and all everywhere to be. Let's review. The thought of blossoms, and then the thought brought forth by blossoms, and then the thought that brought the blossoms forth. By the apparition of petals, by the contemplation of the apparition of petals, by the surprise of light on a dark morning, by the glow wherein you did not know what you were seeing, thinking you saw blossoms that were in fact dead leaves, by the dead leaves and the season of sorrow and death, by a faraway tree in a dreamless winter, by the song of returning birds. The sun comes up, the birds fall silent. The tree is more truly seen, the one tree glowing amid the grays and browns, glowing not with blossoms, but dead leaves full of light. The sun comes up, the birds fall silent. The tree is more truly seen, the birds are more deeply heard, their awe of the thought of the moment when blossoms will be, of the miracle of the morning that is coming. When blossoms will be there in the dark, will no longer be a thought of a thought of a thought of a thought, but seen there on some branch, be thought itself in the failing dark, birds singing. The thought that brought blossoms to be will be known, will show itself, the way the blossoms on the branch show themselves, their light waking me in the dark, in the deep dark, in the death of the season of death, my dreamless unrest before daylight, the world too quiet for any bird, the thought that brought blossoms to be will find me, be known to me deep in a dead forest before the birds begin and night dies. How long asleep is this world of seasons, of sensations, of light and dark, of so much dreamless unrest where, while awaiting nothing so grand as a hint or signal of some celestial message, we lie down and forget whatever might have been said to be securely known before, that is, the birds sang, and I awoke in failing dark. I must have already thought of blossoms, been thinking of blossoms filling my head, as they are about to fill the world, the wood, the night of sensations, the thought of the smell of the blossoms, the pure petals, pale yellow and white and pink, and the spray of light green, the thought of all these amid the grays and browns, and the thought that brought all these to be, that woke me, that must have been what woke me, before I thought I saw the first of what will be, here, soon, the cascading multitudes of blossoms throughout the forest, before the thought of blossoms, in dreamless unrest, before even the thought of blossoms, that they were there, had arrived, that in the course of a single night they became visible and shone forth. And this will be the last section of this week. Thank you. Earth's shadow. Where light fills airborne snow and water, the aerosols in the eastern sky can be illuminated in the same way, red light scattering on the border of the shadow Earth casts, on its own atmosphere, a dark blue or grayish blue streak along the horizon, opposite to sunset or sunrise, most notable at the anti-solar point. At sunrise, Earth's shadow sets as the sun rises. At sunset, Earth's shadow rises as the sun sets just below the anti-twilight arch, the belt of Venus, visible either after the vision drops or before it again comes to be, appearing pink with backscattered red light. Eventually, both Earth's shadow and the belt of Venus dissolve in the dark of the night sky, though Earth's shadow spills hundreds of thousands of miles into space, so that sometimes the shadow falls on the moon and blots it out, though the moon may retain beyond the bare trees a copper color, or take the shade of an apricot amid ashes. The shadow rises faster than the sun sets. The human eye cannot keep pace with the sky as it darkens. Daylight dulls us, but at sunrise our night vision is acute, not missing the least flicker unless, that is, a plume of sulfuric acid rises from El Chichon or Mount Pinatubo, and the sky becomes overtly fantastic, even over once sacred Athens, which Pindar called in Fragment 64, the crown, the city of the violet crown. Thank you.